The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Bill Gates is one of the richest men in the world. Thus, he must be one of the smartest men in the world, one of the most perceptive men in the world, right?
Are you talking about Dr. Bill Gates? Because remember, he always gave us COVID advice because, he's a doctor. No, he's not.
Yes, well, something recently occurred to Bill Gates that no one could have appreciated right up until he said it, which is, I don't know if people have been apprised of this. It turns out that COVID has a relatively low fatality rate, and mainly the danger of death mainly impacts the elderly and those with comorbidities. That's not me saying it. Listen.
It wasn't until early February when I was in a meeting that experts at the foundation said, there's no way, there's been too much travel without diagnosis for us to contain this. And then at that point, we didn't really understand the fatality rate. We didn't understand that it's a fairly low fatality rate and that it's a disease mainly of the elderly, kind of like flu is, although a bit different than that. So that was a pretty scary period, right, where the world didn't go on alert, including the United States, nearly as fast as it needed to.
Yeah, so
Wow.
Anyway, that was February of
Thanks.
2020. He was talking to top men at his foundation. And then nobody knew at the time, because that was fast forward all the way to like May of 2020, when people started to recognize this looks like it impacts the elderly very different than it impacts the younger. It looks like obesity and other comorbidities have something to do with it. People started recognizing that in May, and yet Bill Gates persisted up until 5 minutes ago with his promotion of lockdowns and mandatory vaxes and everything else.
And social distancing and only carry out at restaurants and vax passes and all that bull jive. I mean, kids were locked in their basements or in their house for 338 days. That's just in Chicago.
David Marcus is a columnist living in New York City, author of Charade, The COVID Lies That Crushed a Nation. Well, that most certainly includes a healthy treatment of Bill Gates. David Marcus, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So is Bill Gates the last of the COVIDians, or do we still have some COVIDian veterans wandering around not knowing the pandemic's over?
No, we definitely have some COVIDians wandering around, and I feel, I feel a mix of bad for them, and also like, that scene in The Godfather when he smacks the Frank Sinatra character, and he's like, he could be a man, like snap out of this. Yeah, we do, and I don't mean to correct you, Dan, but we knew in March. Donald Trump told Sean Hannity in March that he had spoken to people and believed that the infection fatality rate. Remember, he said, "I have a hunch." Remember that?
Yeah.
And everybody, myself included, said, "Oh my goodness, you can't say that. This is not how you handle a pandemic." So yeah, I mean, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya knew in early April. He had done testing that showed that there were way, way more asymptomatic cases than we were giving credit for, and CNN just kept that fatality rate number right up there on the screen to scare the hell out of me.
No, you're right. I mean, Johan Gesicki, who was the former state epidemiologist for Sweden, was saying something. He was offering his sort of expert insight, saying this is how I think it's going to play out, and talk to me a year from now, and we'll see who is right. And he was basically saying the same thing, and that was in April. But I mean, there were more voices. I mean, you're right to point that out. But the chorus continued to grow in the summer of 2020, and Bill Gates was nowhere to be found.
No, and look at how Bill Gates ended that mishmash of a sentence. Somehow he says, "Oh, we overestimated by a lot how bad this was. So what we should have done is locked down harder." What?
Yeah, right.
What?
But
What?
his opinion helped lawmakers set policy, and that's what's so
Oh,
wrong, because
sure.
he's not an epidemiologist or a virologist or even a family physician. But he has money, so he thinks he can talk to the American people like that?
He has money, so what he thinks he can do, and in fact what he can do, is spend a lot of money to have a good deal of control over our credentialing institutions. And we have a huge, huge problem with our credentialing institutions today, because they were the reasons, people like the American Medical Association, these are the reasons that serious voices, people at Stanford, right, were basically called quacks. You can't listen to them. If you saw that Jon Stewart interview recently, where he said to the Arkansas Attorney General about the trans surgeries for kids and stuff, he said, "Are you really saying that to protect children, we need to overrule the American Medical Association?" Yeah, John. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
What did the AMA do to our kids for 2 years?
Right.
So it's a problem, and that's what Bill Gates can control.
I wanted to get to this other issue, too. It came out the other day. You wrote about it. Documents obtained by the Heritage Foundation through a FOIA request find that the head of Homeland Security, one Ali Mayorkas, who is one of the most unctuous representatives of the Biden administration, that he lied, and he knew he was lying about the whole quote-unquote horsewhipping incident, Border Patrol at the border with the Haitian migrants, that the emails obtained by the Heritage Foundation have the photographer who took the photos saying, in a quote provided to Mayorkas, "I've never seen them whip anybody. He, the Border Patrol agent, was swinging it, the reins, but it can be misconstrued when you're looking at the picture." So the photographer got wind of this story about, oh, they were whipping these poor Haitian migrants, and he corrected the record, and that got to Mayorkas before he went on TV and did his performative hand-wringing, "We're going to go where the facts lead, and no stone will be left unturned" routine.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to resign or be fired. I mean, there's two big problems here. The biggest problem is that we can't ask these border agents, these men and women, to work under a guy who smeared them as racists, lied about them, when his job was to get up there, even if he had to do it right in front of the president and embarrass him and say, "Listen, I have evidence that suggests this is not what happened, but obviously we're going to do a careful investigation, blah, blah, blah." Not what he did. He threw his own people under the bus, and he deserves to be fired for that. Worse, this is just another example, and I don't know if this is worse, but it's bad. Just another example, like Jussie Smollett, like the BYU volleyball, like the NASCAR noose.
Yep.
Again and again and again, there's this allegation of racism, and in our society, every politician, at least on the left, everyone in the media has to immediately believe that it's true, immediately start saying, "Oh my goodness, here's more evidence of how horribly racist the United States is," and then inevitably it turns out to be false. We have to stop doing this. The reason that they don't stop doing this is because there's not that much racism in the United States, and every time they get one of these things, whether it's true or not, they want to juice it for every drop that they can get.
And then in the end, it took a year to clear up the agents of allegedly whipping nothing.
Well,
Yeah,
that was
after
performative
Mayorkas
too.
told Congress, and after Mayorkas told Congress, the investigation will take days, not weeks. Direct quote: days, not weeks.
I remember that.
Unbelievable.
Right, but then you do these things, and so we're taking it seriously. We're on the job. We're going to get this done.
They're
we're going
on
to get you an
desk
answer,
duty.
and then you just let it fade away. And the DC press corps is happy to help you let it fade away.
Some of them are. Some of us in the press corps aren't,
Yeah.
and I think that they're.
You know what I mean?
This was one that bothered a lot of people. I tweeted the other day that I write all kinds of stories. I don't get too emotionally involved in them. I was in Del Rio just a few days after this incident, and if you go to someplace like Del Rio, the people there love the border agents. They're related to half of them. They're a hugely important part of the community. Mayorkas was attacking that entire community. So I think a lot of people were made angry by the fact that this guy was abusing his position and hurting the people who are actually helping others. So there's been some calls for his resignation. I think there frankly needs to be a lot more.
Well, hopefully there'll be the very unusual reckoning for someone on the left. David Marcus, columnist living in New York City, author of Charade, The COVID Lies That Crushed a Nation. David, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Hi, I'm Dave Nissen, CEO of PKF Mueller. The current COVID pandemic has been a challenge for all of us, and many businesses struggled and experienced financial distress. Businesses are focused on recovering now, and fortunately, several government programs are available to ease this process. One such program is the Employee Retention Credit, or ERC.